Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Mozambique has seen considerable foreign direct investment in its mining sector, which has had spin-off effects into other areas such as the agriculture and pharmaceutical sectors, as well as infrastructure development. Keith Campbell tells us more. Welcome, Keith. Keith, can you elaborate on what effect mining investment has had on Mozambique's social and development issues such as poverty, food security and healthcare?
Well, it's had a wide range of impacts, and these vary considerably. One has to make a point that at the moment, each mining company that's invested in Mozambique has its own policies on social development, what's called corporate social responsibility in the modern jargon. And so the response varies dramatically. The Mozambican Ministry of Mineral Resources recently released a report which suggests that the spending on corporate social responsibility by mining companies varies from as little as $10,000 a year to as much as $1 million a year. Nevertheless, there have been some interesting outcomes. Most strikingly, perhaps, has been the donation of $4.5 million by the Brazilian mining group Vale, which has developed the giant Moatize coal mine in Tete province in Mozambique, towards the cost of setting up a pharmaceuticals plant in Maputo, which will manufacture generic medications, including antiretroviral drugs to help treat people with HIV/AIDS in Mozambique. This is actually a joint project in origin between the Brazilian and Mozambican governments, and the Brazilian government provided half the funding, $23 million, and Vale's contribution was on the Mozambican side of the funding. So that's a clear example. On a smaller scale, but long-term potentially very important, is Rio Tinto's involvement in a memorandum of understanding signed between the British and Mozambican governments and a not-for-profit British-based company called the Agricultural Development Company to stimulate agricultural production in Tete province. The idea is to get local small farmers to be able to produce more efficiently so that they can sell their produce to the people working in the mining projects. Of course, the mining employment figure in Tete is soaring, and the miners need food. And the idea is to try and stimulate the local production. And maybe in the long term, the result in the small farmers being able to export food. This is not unrealistic, by the way. A significant degree of Kenya's agricultural exports come from small farmers.
Now, Keith, a recent review of mining laws and mining taxation created some uncertainty among foreign companies operating in the country. Has this issue been resolved?
Well, we should know what the final outcome is this month or next month. The proposed final revisions of the mining law will be presented to the Council of Ministers, the Mozambican cabinet, this month. We've been told that. The Mozambique mining law dates to 2002, and that was the law that opened the country to foreign investment in the mining and hydrocarbon sectors. In 2004, total foreign investment in mining was something like $65 million. Last year, the investment in mining, foreign investment in mining, was something like $1.2 billion. And the Mozambican government last year announced that they were going to consider revisions, not changing the whole law, but revising the existing law, because they felt there was a need to rebalance certain things. One example that has been explicitly cited recently by a senior government official is that under the current law, a mining company has 10 years after the award of mining license before they have to stop mining, and the proposed revision is to reduce this time period to 7 years. But it's very Mozambican government officials, ministers and mining officials have been very clear in the statements that they do not want to damage the country's attractiveness as a destination for mining investment. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what comes out. There is a draft available on the Ministry of Mineral Resources website, in Portuguese of course, that can be studied, but they seem determined to achieve minimum restructuring, in part to increase government revenues. The government in the past decade or so got about its revenues from the mining sector, hydrocarbon sector, about 4% to 6% of total revenues in the sector. And it's been reported in Mozambique they'd like to increase this to about 18%, but they want to do so in a way that will not alienate the foreign investors and drive them away. So there seems a strong commitment in the Mozambican government not to scare investors.
What is the economic outlook for Mozambique in the long term, and what role will the mining and minerals sector play?
Well, Mozambique's been going like a rocket. From 1999 to 2009, it was, I think, the 18th fastest growing economy in the world. Its economic growth rate was averaged about 7.5%. Now, the interesting thing is that in terms of mining investment and hydrocarbons investment, the 2008 Great Recession had no impact at all. If you look at the graphs, the investment just carries on a steady rising path without any kinks whatsoever. So this has obviously been a major factor in driving this economic growth, and the economy is expected to grow at over 7%, maybe about 7.2% this year, probably about 7.5% next year. Longer term, of course, predictions are difficult, but it's likely that the minerals and the hydrocarbon sector will continue to drive strong Mozambican growth. And of course, this is translating out also into significant per capita gross domestic product growth, 4.5 to 5.5%, depending on the forecast. So it's likely to have a very strong and very beneficial effect. It's also transforming the country's infrastructure. The railways have been completely refurbished. New port terminals have been constructed. It's improving the jobs market. It's having very wide-ranging impact on the Mozambican economy and society.
Thanks for chatting to us, Keith. That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.